Well, of course, global warming is another scam that they have. Now, back to this fossil fuel, so-called. You know, the very idea of it, hey, oil is dead dinosaurs that have decomposed in the earth. That's our oil. When you run out of dead dinosaurs, you run out of oil. That's the claim. It's so silly, people don't really think about it. Here's where this came up. Around the Los Angeles area, they had the oil tar pits. And, of course, being gooey and sticky, there were a certain number of animals, even back in prehistoric times, that got into the oil tar pit, and guess what? They couldn't get out, and they died there. They found their remains. This caused many people to say, hey, that must be where the oil came from.
Exactly.
Uneducated people.
Stay there. Text Mars. We're going to be right back after break for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. We're going to have some behind the scenes right now. Welcome back, Genesis listeners. Say hi to all the PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. We have Texe Mars here in studio with us, going back into oil, shifting gears back into that. Yeah, they came out, 150 years ago when they first discovered oil, and we're looking at coal. There is some small deposits where you find the imprints of ferns. There's very small amounts of coal that they found in association. As you said, they found tar pits in Africa, the U.S. I've seen the history, and they said, oh, the juice from these animals made this. Of course, now they admit the La Brea tar pits was them getting caught up in it, and animals dying in it. So continue with this system.
Well, first of all, we need to understand something. We're being attacked. Our minds are being attacked. We're being told to accept a new reality, that we're going to have to accept being a third world impoverished nation, that we're going to have to accept food prices doubling, tripling. We're going to have to accept the fact that our water is going to be controlled from now on, and the price of that is going to go up dramatically. This age of scarcity, this new reality, this is what we have to watch out for. Now, how do we fight back? First of all, we have to understand the truth, which is, for 200 years, America has been the land of plenty, and we have plenty. This planet is awash with oil. Once we understand that water is incredible. Most of the world's surface
They're now saying water. They're now saying water isn't renewable. They're teaching school children that.
Well, and the reason why, let's go back to the water. We'll go around and round up all of these three key resources in the so-called age of scarcity. Remember, billionaires like T. Boone Pickens from Oklahoma, he has bought up the water rights in West Texas for about 3 states, underground the water rights. He's going to build pipelines, just like oil pipelines. And water is going to cost more than oil within a decade. That's their plan.
The UN has said it 30 years ago. Again, a key point here for everybody to understand, to totally back up what you're saying, Tex. I remember not just reading Club of Rome documents and all of this. They go back 40 years, 30 years where they admit all this. I remember on NPR and on PBS shows and Charlie Rose, they would say the new oil dollar would be built on shortage. When he'd have Kissinger on, would be built on oil, water, timber, everything. And, of course, they get to tax us now on what humans put off, carbon dioxide, saying it's a deadly poison, when it's one of the 4, life-giving building blocks, water, sun, carbon dioxide, oxygen, on this planet. But I've heard them on NPR go, Americans are soon going to have our standard of living taken. We deserve it. It's like a little liberal sacrament. Oh, we're going to pay now. They admit it's a scam. I mean, they are just, go ahead, Tex.
Well, back to this water. Not only T. Boone Pickens, there are many more. For example, Maurice Strong. He's a Canadian. But he comes down to Colorado with his wife, Hannah. The first thing he does, this rich Illuminati.
He's admittedly into the occult.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, he builds a temple to the occult, a New Age temple there in the Baca Grande area of Colorado. Remember now, he's a rich, fabulously rich Canadian. But there he is in Colorado. Why? Because he bought up, for a song, the water rights to Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, because of this Baca Grande, trillions of barrels of water.
And by the way, governments aren't allowed to sell the aquifers, but they do.
Oh, yeah. Now,
and that's why they're now saying you can't drill a well, you can't have your own water. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to control us. And they're going to watch people that now have wells that live out in the country.
There's 2 million cops. They're talking about 3 million enviro cops without warrants, just everywhere spying. Go ahead.
Well, the satellites are watching, too.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
they're using the military
don't
satellites.
Drill your own well, but they'll be watching.
No, they admit it now, and local police are going to have it too.
Now, the interesting thing about Maurice Strong, for example, and I talk about him quite a bit in my book, Circle of Intrigue, the hidden inner circle of the global Illuminati conspiracy. Strong was the head at the time when he bought up these water rights here in the United States, head of the United Nations Environmental Program. Then he went back up to Canada, and he bought into Hydro-Canada. Now he owns most of the water rights of the Canadian people. Now, the reason why they did this, why they bought up all these water rights, all these aquifers very slowly, very quietly over the last 2 decades, they are now going to drive up the price of water to unbelievable levels. It's going to be such a precious resource, and they're going to watch every little drop. Forget about your lawns. Forget about your home gardens. And people who live out in the country that have their own wells, they're going to have to put meters on them. They're going to watch everything.
And this is feudalism.
It's privatization. And all of the municipal water companies have been forced to sell their operations to the rich.
Has anybody wondered why it's Dutch, German, British, Israeli? They own all the water districts now.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, I get the reports all the time. They'll come in and buy the city's water, pay off the politicians, and then double, triple prices overnight.
Now, the food industry is exactly the same.
We're going to come back and talk about that with Texe Mars. And then during this break for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers or for Infowars.com internet stream listeners, we're going to go ahead and switch over to that stream right now, folks. You'll be able to hear me and Texe at the Infowars stream and continue this discussion to all our AM and FM affiliates. We'll be right back in 3 minutes for all of you that are out there. We're trying to stop the New World Order. We're having two parallel discussions. During the break, we're talking about why did they kill Paul Free on May Day, the high holy occult day. And then it got into environmentalism and how they believe it's earth worship, sun worship. And then now we see that topic, because it's all interconnected, nexusing with how they want to control the resources through feudalism because they, quote, worship the earth, but then they're the ones actually destroying the earth because they believe in this yin and yang, the Illuminati code, of they destroy and they rebuild. But in their own stated documents, it's official, they say that they're going to take the water, the food, the land, the oil, jack up the prices to bring you all back to a feudal level so you can't afford to have children. And as I told you they would do, they've now proposed one-child taxes in the U.S. as it started in China, and then 7 years later, it started in the mid-'70s, and then in the early '80s became mandatory. They signed IMF World Bank deals. They signed on the State Department Memorandum 200. This is all coming. You think it's bad now with a cop on every corner? New environmental regulations, animal ID, premise society, thousands of dollars in fines for tiny things, total control. They're flattening tires, burning down buildings now, the fake environmentalists. Soon they're going to be in uniforms. They already are. Al Gore, 10 million strong youth army in the U.S. Texe, please continue.
Well, you know, several years ago, I wrote this book, Days of Hunger, Days of Chaos. I want you to have a copy of it, Alex, because in this book, the subtitle, by the way, is The Coming Great Food Shortages in America. And a lot of people said, hey, this can't be. You know, I don't believe this kind of stuff. But here's a book, over 200 pages that I wrote. This was the first book to expose Monsanto, Dow Chemical, and the others, their plans for the Terminator gene to be implanted in the seeds.
You wrote this 9 years ago, I remember.
Absolutely. And people couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe the Terminator seeds would be
But you saw their own documents, and you knew that they planned to create this artificial. Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Now, think of this. Maria Bertini, I quote her in the book. Who is Maria Bertini? She was the head of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. There is a World Food Authority. They've already set it up. Okay, at the United Nations. In fact, they have erected a building, a gigantic complex in Brussels, Belgium. All right? My next newsletter, I'm going to have a picture of that building. Hey, it seems to be 10 times as big as the United States Capitol. It must have thousands of bureaucrats. They are ready to go. They're going to control the world's food, including America's food.
They had that Beijing conference, 96, 97, which one? And the head of the UN Food Program said, we will use food as a weapon. We have used it as a weapon, and we do not apologize.
That was Bertini. And she said, and I want to quote her, food is power. food is power. The head of the United Nations Food Program, with this gigantic building, they probably employ 3,000 or 4,000 bureaucrats in this one building in Brussels, Belgium, for food. And remember also, the United Nations last year had a international water conference. They're warning people there are going to be wars between nations over water. Already we're seeing food riots. Everything it was taking place so that they can program our minds. This is alchemical attacks, alchemical magic.
We're being taught that food and water and fuel now are these incredibly scarce commodities.
That's right.
But don't worry, government's going to help us. One child.
Oh, yeah.
If there were less people, as Ted Turner's been saying,
population.
Suddenly all of the news saying, if we had less people, you could have the Mercedes again.
Well, isn't it interesting that Ted Turner, who, the guy that once called Christians losers and bozos, Ted Turner, who's been favored by the Illuminati rich all his life, he says we must all have no more than one child.
He has 5.
But what? Yeah, he has 5. I'm glad you mentioned that. He has 5 himself. All of this is a setup, of course.